Welcome to the Look Good, Move Well podcast.
Yeah. I want to add a couple things to the mix. One is an emphasis on movement quality, because a lot of people do get hung up on numbers and they want the predictability of being able to choose the same weights and repeat that effort once you've figured out that that's your weight for an 8 out of 10. You want to come in and do it the same way, but the tempo may be different. The rep range may be different. There may be a movement variation, especially in functional bodybuilding, that's going to give you a little bit of a different stimulus. And so getting more attached to movement quality, because this was one thing I learned when I was rehabbing an injury, is that you can take a lightweight or even body weight and make it really challenging if you really focus on quality and are really giving that your all. Not to say you're not going to need to add resistance to progress over time, but there's a lot to be said for doing a perfectly executed tempo at a moderate weight for a certain number of reps and the rest, and all of the different variables that go into it with FBB. And then the second thing is that we talked about this a little bit earlier this week on a call, but when you look at your general approach, just your blanket broad approach to effort, you're the kind of person that goes super hard, you're the kind of person that kind of phones it in. I think that just having a little bit of a discerning eye for in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, do I feel like I'm getting better? Do I feel like I'm progressing in quality, in my capability, in my confidence in certain movements? Do I feel like I am giving enough effort to grow in the ways that I'm trying to grow, inside, outside, physically, stability, anything that you're working on? Or did that level of effort start to cause a decline in your performance because you're starting to feel pain, burnout? I just can't muster the mental effort to really take on this load. So those are just a couple extra thoughts to add to the discussion.
Yeah. Well, additionally, I also will add a couple more things, which is, I think the goal each time you come into a training session should be to move with good quality. And it's make sure that you're not sacrificing quality for intensity. But that each time that you're in the gym, you got to pick something that you're going to give your effort on. You're going to really challenge yourself with. And a thoughtfully designed program should allow you to challenge yourself at least once, maybe multiple times in a session.
Yep.
Safely. And if I challenge myself this week and the program is thoughtfully designed, and I come in the next week and I challenge myself to the same number or percentage of effort, that I'm still making progress because of the way the reps, the sets, the rest periods were designed. So what that means, and what I'm trying to say, is that developing an understanding of your own rate of perceived exertion is super valuable, because you need to know that you check the box on that exertion level on any given day in the gym.
Yep.
I can take that even further and then assign a certain number of efforts that you should give on a week. You're an intermediate athlete, you should give 8 efforts, high 10 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 efforts a week. You're an advanced lifter, you should only do 4 10 out of 10 efforts a week. You're a beginner, everything should feel hard. It's okay. You're not going to burn yourself out. And why I'm saying it like that is because an advanced lifter, when they do 10 out of 10, because they've been training as long as they have, that 10 out of 10 is a true 10 out of 10. And it's going to zap them of a lot of energy. So they might be able to do only 3 or 4 like that a week.
Yeah.
The rest is your zone is 8 or 9 out of 10, and you get some good stimulus from that. An intermediate person can do more, because when they go 10 out of 10, they're still learning about they're still growing, they're still developing, they still haven't hit their true maxes, they still aren't pushing these, bigger weights yet. And so it doesn't take as much out of them. And then on the beginner side, it's everything feels hard. It should feel hard.
Yeah.
And you wake up the next day ready to go, you know? The other thing I was going to add is that rate of perceived exertion, you know, like, oh, that felt like a 8 out of 10. You know, there's so much subjectivity to that.
Yes.
So when people are like, well, I don't even know what that means. So that's where something like reps in reserve is also a very good and interesting concept for people to learn. Hey, like you stand up out of your last rep and you're about to re-rack the bar. And I say to you, hey, how many more reps could you do? You're like, oh, I could have done like 2 more. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, if you could do 2 more, then you're like at a 8 out of 10 right now.
Yeah.
If you like are standing up and your eyes like almost bust out of the socket and you barely lock out and you walk it into the rack, I'm like, hey, could you have done another one? You're like, no way. Like, there's no way. Okay, that's a 10 out of 10.
Yep.
You're like, if somebody stands up and they look, you're like, you're the coach, you're like, I think they could have done 10 more. Like,
they're like
that's
walking
a warm-up
away
set. That's
a
5 out of 10. That wasn't the stimulus that we were looking for. It might have helped them learn motor control. It could have helped them learn, you know, movement quality. They could have gotten a good, maybe mobility, strength, strength lengthening thing out of it. But did it get them stronger? Is that going to build muscle? No. It's not, like in the traditional sense that we're talking about here. And that's where we just like, you know, this was something that was really hard to coach in the group fitness days, is because you had so many people and it was like, oh my gosh, this person's working at a 6 out of 10. This person's they're at an 11 out of 10. Like their form is breaking down. You know, that's what 11 out of 10 looks like, is you've gone beyond your best effort with quality. That's another concept that I think people need to understand, is that you can push beyond 10 out of 10 and it looks like you doing something extremely sloppy and with bad technique in exchange for intensity, and that's where people get into trouble. Doing something 10 out of 10 should not increase your injury risk. It should potentially, and it could potentially lead to overtraining and burnout, because you're overloading your nervous system too many times a week. If you did every day going 10 out of 10 on everything, you'll get tired, you'll get burned out, you'll get nervous system exhausted. But if you do a 10 out of 10 squat with good form and good mechanics, you don't injure yourself. If you do an 11 out of 10, that's where injury happens, because 11 out of 10 by definition, my definition, just making this up today, I think this is a good one, is when you're pushing 10 out of 10 effort, but you break form to try and get them further, and that's where things go haywire for people.
Yes.
So, you know, for people who are really averse to injury and they're like, they haven't dialed in their mechanics, they don't know how to move perfectly yet, then it's like, okay, find that 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 sweet spot, and you won't run into those, you know, risky situations as much.
Yeah.